August 2nd, 1944, Warsaw, city center. A typewriter clatters beneath the sound of distant explosions. The paper curls from the heat. Ink smudges where her trembling fingers touch it. Dust floats through the air, catching in the candlelight. Hanna Lewandowska sits at a dented metal desk, its paint chipped from years of use. The drawers are labeled in heavy block letters, filled with the paperwork of war. Behind her, the window pane is cracked and gray with soot. Beyond it, the city burns quietly. Somewhere in the distance, the uprising has begun. The German officer beside her speaks in a calm, measured voice. He dictates names, addresses, and charges while she types, translating each word into the official report. His uniform still smells faintly of soap and leather, an impossible cleanliness against the chaos outside. Every word she types is a sentence for someone else. Hannah's world has shrunk to this desk, this typewriter, this rhythm. She presses each key as if striking a bargain she does not believe in. She was once a teacher of languages, a woman who believed words could connect people. Now those same words are her prison. From the hallway comes a muffled sound, a voice crying out, cut short. Hannah keeps her eyes on the page. The officer doesn't look up. He continues dictating, impatient at the delay. She types faster to drown out the noise. On the floor by her feet sits an open case filled with thin sheets of paper and carbon copies. Between the official documents, she has hidden her own notes, small scraps of shorthand written in pencil, fragments of the things people said before they disappeared. She writes them in a secret code, hoping that someday someone will understand what she meant to preserve. Outside, gunfire breaks the air. Through the cracked window, Hannah sees smoke rising from the rooftops and a flash of white fabric waving in the distance. She wonders if it's a flag or a bedsheet. Either way, it means resistance. She feels it deep in her chest. Fear, but also something else she hasn't felt in years. Hope. The officer clears his throat. Focus, he says sharply. Hannah nods without speaking. The candle flickers, and she presses another line onto the page. The typewriter ribbon snaps mid-sentence. The room falls silent. For the first time all day, the sounds outside seem louder than the ones inside. Gunfire, shouts, footsteps, the groan of collapsing buildings. Hannah replaces the ribbon with steady hands. Her heartbeat slows to match the mechanical rhythm as she begins again. She no longer hears the officer's voice, only the sound of keys hitting paper, a code that no one else will read. When she finishes the report, she slips one more scrap of shorthand between the pages, another hidden testimony folded into official language. She closes the file and sets it aside. The light flickers once more, and the air smells of smoke and ink. Somewhere beneath the building, a radio clicks twice and goes silent. Hannah listens, waiting for the next sound. The typewriter stands ready before her. She straightens her shoulders and begins to type again. The first shells fall before sunrise. The sound rolls through the streets like thunder, shaking loose glass and dust from the ceilings. By the time the daylight filters through the smoke, whole neighborhoods are burning. The uprising that people only dared to whisper about has become a roar. Hannah feels it before she sees it. The change in the air, the quickened heartbeat of a dying city refusing to die quietly. She's moved from her old office to Pawiak prison, a brick fortress that once held criminals and now holds the city's conscience. The corridors echo with boots, shouts, and the clanging of metal doors. The smell of damp stone mixes with blood and cigarette smoke. Her new supervisor, Franz Durr, is precise to the point of cruelty. He never raises his voice. He calls her Miss H, as if her name were too complicated for his tongue. You listen well, he tells her. That's why you're useful. Her job is to translate interrogations. A prisoner sits across the table. The officer asks the questions, and she renders the words into another language. She's the bridge between two worlds that both despise her. Every day begins the same way. A man or woman led into the room, their face covered in dirt and fear. Sometimes they're soldiers, sometimes they're teachers, nurses, or children pretending to be older. The questions never change. Name, group. Command, who else? She repeats each question, her voice even, her eyes lowered. The answers come in broken whispers, curses, or silence. She writes everything down. One afternoon, a young man is brought in. His arm is wrapped in a torn strip of cloth. He looks barely 20. Durr asks his name, his commander, his role in the uprising. The young man just stares at the wall. Hannah hesitates, then translates softly. He refuses to answer. It isn't true. He hasn't said anything. But maybe a lie can buy him a heartbeat more. Durr's expression doesn't change. He signals to the guards. They drag the prisoner out, leaving the smell of blood and dust behind. Hannah's hands shake as she types the record. When the report is done, she hides a scrap of paper beneath the ribbon of the typewriter. Later that night, in her room above the prison, she writes what she remembers in her secret shorthand. A boy with gray eyes, no fear, only exhaustion, said nothing. Still alive when the door closed. She hides the note inside the lining of her shoe. Days blur. The typewriter becomes her heartbeat. The screams become background noise. The city outside burns, but inside the walls of Pawiak, order continues. Paperwork must still be filed even when the world is ending. Sometimes when she's left alone, Hannah opens the window just enough to smell the smoke and hear the faint echo of Polish voices rising from the streets. The resistance, still fighting somewhere out there. She closes her eyes and imagines herself among them. That night, Durr finds her standing by the window. You're listening again, he says. I'm listening for how close they are, she answers quietly. He studies her face, searching for something. Do you think they'll win? She doesn't reply. There's no safe way to answer that question. The next morning, she's ordered to pack her things. The prison is no longer secure. The interrogations will continue at Gestapo headquarters on Szucha Avenue. The truck that carries her rattles through streets filled with rubble and smoke. On the sidewalks, women carry buckets of water to put out fires. A child drags a broken suitcase behind him. No one looks up at the truck. No one looks at her. When they arrive, the new office smells like damp paper and fear. The desks are the same, the questions are the same, but outside the windows, the city is almost gone. That night, after everyone leaves, Hannah hears faint tapping through the floor. 2 short knocks, 1 long, a signal. Someone from the underground must still be alive. She kneels, presses her ear to the boards, and whispers into the dark, "Yes, I'm still here." The days lose their edges. There is no longer morning or night, just the constant pulse of work and the hollow rhythm of bombs. The building on Szucha Avenue shakes often, but it never collapses. The walls are too thick, the air too heavy. Inside, order has become its own form of violence. Every task is precise. Coffee poured at 7, reports delivered by noon, executions recorded before dusk. Hannah learns that in this place, silence is the only safe language. Her new desk sits under a single hanging light bulb that hums faintly when it flickers. The room smells of damp paper and typewriter oil. Across from her, the officers speak quietly, their boots polished, their tempers dull with fatigue. Outside, the world burns, but in here, sentences are still measured in margins and signatures. Hannah types the same words over and over until she can no longer hear them as words. Transfer confirmed. Confession attached. Each line is a wound dressed in bureaucracy. At night, she stays behind after the others leave. She takes scraps of discarded forms and fills their empty backs with her shorthand, tiny loops and slashes that hold what the official reports erase. Each note becomes a heartbeat preserved on paper. She hides them inside the hollow leg of her chair or beneath loose tiles on the floor. Sometimes a girl named Maria comes to clean the office, 16, maybe 17, too young to carry the eyes she has. She empties the wastebasket each night, humming softly as she works. No one notices her. Hannah does. She slips folded notes into the trash beneath the ashes of burned reports. The next morning, the papers are gone. It becomes a rhythm between them. No words, just small gestures. A blink, a dropped pencil, a pause too long to be accidental. Maria's mop knocks twice against the floor when the underground has news. Once, Hannah sees a faint smile on the girl's face before she disappears down the hall. Outside, autumn has come early. The wind through the broken windows carries the scent of smoke and wet stone. The city is starving, but inside the office, the officers eat from tin plates, their conversation full of rumors about retreat and rumors about victory, both unconvincing. Late one evening, Hannah is ordered to translate the interrogation of a man brought in from the ruins of a hospital. His face is bruised, his white coat black with soot. She recognizes him, Dr. Berzozowski, once her colleague at the university. His glasses are gone, but his voice is steady. Durr sits across from him, notebook in hand. "You are accused of aiding the rebellion," he says evenly. Hannah translates the words into Polish. The doctor smiles faintly. If treating the wounded is rebellion, then yes. Durr's pen pauses. The air feels heavier. Hannah repeats the sentence exactly, her voice steady, even as her throat tightens. After the interrogation, the doctor is taken away. Hannah writes his name in her shorthand that night, along with his words. She underlines them twice, pressing the pencil so hard it tears the page. The following days pass in exhaustion. The electricity fades often. The office smells of kerosene lamps and fear. Hannah keeps typing, her fingers blistered from the metal keys. The shorthand grows into dozens of pages. Each one holds the outline of a voice that might otherwise vanish. Then, one morning, Durr brings her a new stack of reports. At the top is an official letter from Berlin titled "Consolidation of Prisoners." The phrase is too clean, too final. She understands what it means. She reads it once, then looks up. Durr watches her. "Something wrong?" "No," she says quietly. "Just tired of translating death." He stares at her for a long moment before saying, "Aren't we all?" When he leaves, she slides the document into her drawer and copies it line by line in her shorthand. The pencil trembles in her hand, but she keeps writing. Outside, the gunfire grows closer. Inside, her typewriter never stops. By late September, the city above has stopped breathing. The uprising's flames have burned themselves out, and what remains is ash, silence, and surrender. In the basement of the Gestapo building, the typewriters still clatter on, as if they can hold off the end of the world by recording it. Hannah hasn't seen the sky in weeks. The only light comes from oil lamps that smoke and hiss when the drafts pass through the cracked walls. Her fingers ache from the cold. Each day she types reports that no longer have purpose. Executions ordered for prisoners who are already dead. Interrogations that will never happen because the cells are empty. The war here has become administrative. Durr grows quieter, too. His uniform is creased now, his hair uncombed, his sentences shorter. Sometimes as he dictates, his voice drifts. He tells her once, almost absently, that his wife has fled Dresden. "I imagine the Russians will take it soon," he says, as if describing a storm on the horizon. She nods, says nothing. What comfort could exist between them? Then one morning he hands her a new file. It bears a familiar name, Dr. Jan Brzozowski. Hannah's pulse stumbles. The doctor, the man who refused to apologize for helping the wounded. His file should have been closed weeks ago. She opens it with trembling fingers. Inside, a single page. Sentence carried out. She looks up. Durr is watching her carefully. "Type this into the official record," he says. "File it with the others." Her mouth is dry. "Yes, sir." He dictates slowly, his tone cold and rehearsed. The subject was executed in accordance with martial law. She translates each word. Her mind repeats the sentence differently. He lived. He tried. He's gone. When she finishes typing, she stares at the page for a long moment. One number catches her eye. Prisoner 2127. Her breath steadies. She knows she can't save him, but she can change something. She slides the page back into the typewriter and corrects a single digit. 2129. It's nothing. It's everything. Durr signs the document without reading. "Efficiency, Miss H," he says, his voice flat. That's all that matters now. When he leaves, she folds the carbon copy and hides it inside her sleeve. Her hands are shaking. Later that night, she slips the page to Maria as the girl empties the trash. "Don't read it," Hannah whispers. "Just keep it dry." Maria nods once and disappears into the darkness. 2 days later, Durr storms into the room. His gloves are still on, his face pale. "A problem," he says sharply. "There's been a mistake. A man we executed wasn't on the list." Hannah forces her face still. "That's not possible." He slams the folder onto her desk. "You typed this, didn't you?" She looks at the paper. The altered number stares back at her in clean black ink. She waits for the accusation, for the end. But Durr only exhales and sinks into the nearest chair. "War turns even numbers against us," he says quietly. "It doesn't matter anymore. Nothing does." He leaves without another word. When the door closes, Hannah lets herself breathe. But it isn't relief that fills her. It's nausea. A man is alive because another died in his place. Her lie saved one life by ending another she'll never know. That night she can't stop writing. The pencil scratches furiously across stolen paper, tracing her thoughts in the shorthand only she understands. A man lives because a number changed. The ink is guilt. The silence is punishment. The bombs grow closer. She can feel each one through the floor. Still, she keeps writing, faster now, as if she can outpace what's coming. In the corner, the typewriter waits, ribbon frayed, keys bent. She sits and begins to type, not as a clerk, not as a prisoner, but as a witness. Names, details, fragments of truth disguised as reports. When the power goes out, she keeps typing in the dark, the rhythm steady and defiant. Outside, the city dies. Inside, her words keep breathing. October 2nd, 1944. The uprising is over. The last resistance fighters have surrendered. Warsaw is a blackened field of rubble and smoke, the kind of silence that comes only after something enormous has finished dying. In the basement on Szucha Avenue, Hannah works by candlelight. The others have gone, the guards, the officers, even Durr. She doesn't know if they fled or were reassigned. and she doesn't care. The building creaks with emptiness. Papers rustle in the drafts that slip through the cracks. Somewhere above, another wall collapses. She has stopped eating. Her body is light, hollow, almost transparent, but her hands still move. She gathers the German files from the desks and stacks them neatly on the floor. Then she opens her own hidden compartment, the space beneath the broken tile, where months of coded shorthand lie folded in layers. She spreads the papers across the table. Each scrap holds a whisper of a life, a prisoner's last words, a doctor's defiance, a boy's silence. She reads them all again, though she already knows them by heart. They are her proof that she existed for something beyond obedience. The candle burns low. Smoke curls toward the ceiling, leaving dark stains that look like fingerprints. She opens a small tin box, once filled with biscuits, now filled with her secret notes, and begins to sort them by date. For the first time she sees how many there are. Dozens of pages. Hundreds of sentences. A record of the invisible. Outside, a wind rises. The air pressure changes. The Soviets are approaching from the east, and the Germans are setting fire to what they can't take. The city above her shudders under the weight of its own destruction. Hannah knows she can't carry the papers. They would only condemn her. To the next regime, she'll be a traitor either way. Collaborator, spy, survivor. It no longer matters which. But maybe the pages can survive her. She writes one final line on the top sheet, her pencil dull and trembling. To whoever finds this, these are voices. Read them as you would the dead. Then she seals the papers in the tin, ties it with a piece of wire, and looks for a place to hide it. Behind the old furnace, she finds a hollow space between bricks, the size of her hands, still warm from the heat of the dying fire. She slides the tin inside, covers it with ash, and presses the bricks back into place. When she turns, the room is darker. The candle flickers, almost gone. She sits at her typewriter one last time, its metal cold against her fingers. The keys are bent, the ribbon dry, but she forces the machine to move. She types slowly, without paper, without purpose. The sound of the keys echoes through the cellar like footsteps in an empty hall. The rhythm comforts her. It reminds her that she's still here, still choosing to create something, even if no one will ever read it. Above, the final bombardment begins. The floor trembles, dust falls from the ceiling. One blast shakes the walls, then another. The candle tips and dies. Smoke fills her lungs. She keeps typing into the darkness, her fingers moving on instinct, pressing words that no longer exist. A piece of plaster falls beside her. The air thickens, choking. She feels the vibration in her bones, the building breaking apart. She looks toward the furnace, toward the spot where her tin lies buried, and smiles faintly. The next explosion takes the light, the air, the sound. When the dust settles, only the typewriter remains upright on the table. One key is still pressed down, the letter W. It stands alone in the darkness, its shape catching the last ember of the candle's smoke. Spring 1946. London has begun to forget the war, or at least to pretend to. Storefronts reopen, uniforms disappear into closets, and men with medals return to offices, where silence is the new form of courage. The world wants to move forward, but the paper trails of the dead keep arriving in crates. At the Imperial War Museum, a young archivist named Elsie Wright works in a narrow room filled with gray light and dust. Each morning she unpacks boxes sent from Germany and Poland, sorting the fragments of someone else's apocalypse. The documents come wrapped in old cloth, smelling faintly of smoke. She wears gloves, but the smell still clings to her hands. One box is marked Warsaw, 1944, Gestapo files. Inside are folders warped by heat, their corners charred. Elsie opens the top one carefully. The pages are written in German, their margins filled with strange, looping marks. She frowns. It's not a language she recognizes, almost like shorthand, but not any known system. At first, she thinks it's decoration or meaningless scribble, the nervous habits of a clerk. But something about the pattern draws her in. The marks appear only next to certain words. Calm, orderly, efficient. Words that, in the context of these reports, make no sense. That night, she copies a few lines onto fresh paper and studies them under the lamp. Slowly, she begins to recognize a rhythm. The symbols repeat, a line build into sequences. Beneath the cold German text, another message seems to pulse. Over the next week, she compares page after page, tracing the hidden script. What she finds is not random. It's testimony, short human fragments woven through the administrative machine of death. She reads one line clearly for the first time. She translated death into silence so that others could live in words. Elsie stops breathing for a moment. Whoever wrote this wasn't recording orders. She was recording voices. She brings her notes to her supervisor, who scans them with polite disinterest. Another curiosity, he says. Probably nothing. File it under miscellaneous civilian documents. But Elsie can't. That night, alone in the reading room, she reads more. A list of names, descriptions of people who were never supposed to exist. A doctor, a courier, a boy with gray eyes. Each fragment ends abruptly, like a voice cut off mid-sentence. She writes on the folder in pencil, anonymous, Polish interpreter. Weeks later, when the files are finally logged for storage, Elsie types the entry card herself. The line for author remains blank. She stares at it for a long time before adding one word, interpreter. The box is sealed, labeled Archive 7301, Warsaw, 1944. It is placed on a shelf among thousands of others. Sometimes in the quiet of the record room, Elsie swears she can still hear the faint tap of a typewriter key from somewhere deep in the stacks. Not the sound of filing, but of remembering. She doesn't report it. Some echoes deserve to remain. The war is over, but not every battle ends in noise. Some end in a whisper preserved between lines of bureaucratic ink, waiting for someone to listen. The papers rest in their box. Rusted staples, smudged carbon, ash pressed into the fibers. A woman's handwriting drifts beneath the official print, steady even as the world above her collapsed. The words are still legible. Warsaw breathes again, though it isn't the same city. The streets are straighter now, the walls newer, the people quieter. Beneath the fresh plaster and stone lie the bones of the old city. Cellars sealed by time, air shafts filled with dust, and sometimes paper. In 1962, a construction crew, renovating a government building on Szucha Avenue, breaks through a bricked-up wall. Behind it, they find a small tin box, rusted but intact. Inside are folded pages, the ink faded to brown. The workers hand it to an official who barely looks at it before passing it on to an archivist. The box travels through hands, through rooms, through years, until it finds its way to a museum shelf beside others that once held human remains. The label reads, Recovered Documents, Author Unknown. Visitors pass by every day. Most don't stop. The page on display looks like any other piece of wartime paperwork. German text typed neatly across the surface, blackened along the edges. Only when you lean close can you see faint pencil marks weaving through the lines. small arcs and dots, almost invisible, like the memory of handwriting. If you stand long enough, the hum of the museum lights fades, and the silence of the cellar seems to return. You can almost hear the click of metal keys, the scrape of a chair, a breath drawn just before the next word. The label doesn't say her name. It doesn't say she died in that building or that she tried to make language keep its soul. It only says interpreter, yet the paper itself tells more than any caption could. Beneath the official words lies another text, one written for no reader, one that turned obedience into witness. A school group passes by. A boy stops, pressing his hand to the glass. His teacher calls to him, but he doesn't move. His reflection overlaps the faint image of the page. He mouths a single word he doesn't know how to pronounce, tracing its shape in the air. Freedom. Then he turns away. The glass stays cold. The page stays still. But somewhere, the echo of a typewriter continues, soft, deliberate, endless.